God for grace to be on this time in Jesus' name. All right, find three people, give them a high five, and you can be seated. And welcome to week two of Thick and Thin. Come on, a 4-week series on relationships. Last week we talked about that most fun relationship, right? Come on, I have my girl up here. We brought all our baggage up here and realized that we brought a lot of baggage to that relationship, right? Some of that baggage is good, some of that baggage is not so good and needs to be worked out. But we talked about it last week. This week we're going to dive right into another super important relationship in our life. I would say that the benefits of this relationship probably are as valuable as any other natural relationship in your life. Maybe even more valuable when you add up the sum total of the years invested in one another. Like, I get it, like the marriage relationship, the relationship with your spouse if you're engaged. Those of you single folk in here that are like looking for that perfect something, might be sitting next to you today. That's one relationship. But then how many know there are other relationships that can add an extraordinary amount of value to our life? And that's the relationship I want to talk about today. I was thinking about it the other day, the benefits of this relationship. In my own life, it's brought me wisdom. In a world where we can obtain knowledge at the click of a button on a smartphone, I mean, you can learn about anything. You can take a class. Like, if you so desire to be an astrophysicist, you can get a head start on Google. Right? If you want to be an artist, you can learn all about art on Google. In a world full of knowledge, to where we can access knowledge, where we gain knowledge, one thing that's missing, and that's wisdom. And this relationship can bring wisdom. Those of you that operate with a bit of wisdom, you would agree with me that the only thing wiser than one who is wise is a group of people who are wise. The old adage, if you're the wisest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. This relationship brings wisdom. I want to be the kind of man the rest of my life. I've always done it in my younger years, but in my older years, as I get, up there past like 35, is it that gray, really? You're like totally like. In my older years, I want to bring wisdom, not just information, not just knowledge. I'm over the seasons of needing to win the argument. I'd rather see the wisdom in the interaction than the winning of the argument. And it's this particular relationship that adds to that. When you live years, you experience things, and this wisdom is important. But it's not just wisdom that this particular relationship adds to our life. It also creates a culture where you never worry alone. Have you ever worried all by yourself? How many know worry perpetuates more worry? Right? It's cascading like a waterfall. If you don't have this relationship, when you start worrying and you start worrying alone, the stacking starts up, right? And it's like Snoqualmie Falls at flood stage. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And how many have ever been at the beach and you've been surfing in the surf or swimming in the surf? Because there's not a lot of surfing around here. I mean, there is, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. There's more surfing in Southern California. But you've been in the surf and you felt the undertow. Worry has an undertow. Because worry perpetuates more worry. Worry doesn't lead you closer to safe ground, it leads you to dangerous waters. And so this relationship allows you to never worry alone. I want to be the people in my life, the people that I call close friends, the people that I want to do life with, those are the people that won't allow me to worry alone. And better yet, won't create things for me to worry about. Right? When I think about my team here at the church, I think about people that are going to create a different culture than just perpetuating worry and perpetuating fear. And because worry, if it's allowed to just run its course, it leads to fear. And we don't like to say this, but a lot of times worry is sinful. I get it. We live in a culture that's very sensitive to the subject of worry. But the reality is anything that's not of faith is sin. And so sometimes we have to worry about ourselves, worrying all by ourselves. And this relationship allows us to never worry alone. I want to be confident in the midst of uncertainty. I want to be wise, and when knowledge is everywhere, I want to have wisdom. And when worry is the trend and it perpetuates itself when it's alone, then I want to be surrounded by people that can bring confidence in the midst of uncertainty. Right? And honestly, this is the truth in our culture today. Those who need the cheers the most, get them the least. And this particular relationship knows how to cheer one another on. In a world full of performance, in a world full of competition, in a world full of dog eat dog and get ahead, I want to be the type of person that cheers people on, especially the ones that are never cheered on. I want to be a part of a community that sees the value of the advancement of everybody around, and I want to have those kind of relationships and be that kind of man and that kind of leader that cheers for the least of these, that cheers for the ones that never get cheered for. If you haven't been cheered for this week in what you're doing, you just know right now, right here, I'm looking at you best I can. There's a lot of eyes staring at me. I'm looking at y'all best I can, and I'm like, I'm in your corner. I'm cheering you on. I'm clapping for you. I'm thinking about you. When I see your social media post, I don't glance by it. I may like it. I may comment. I don't think that's the depth of my cheer. I think the depth of my cheer is the fact that you and I have a connection that is beyond just passing each other at Starbucks with an empty question of, hi, how are you? I can see your picture and cheer for you. And that's the kind of people I want around me. And that's the kind of relationship that this particular relationship, what it births. What it births. What it gives way to. Like your marriage relationship, the relationship with your spouse, the one you're dating, all that is a solid relationship. That was last week. This relationship lends itself to where you won't worry alone. It lends itself to wisdom. It lends itself to getting some accolades and getting some encouragement and getting some cheers. I walked in this morning and I was introduced to this man back here, and I'm just going to be obedient to the Lord right now. I just felt like when I turned and I met you, sir, I just felt like I was supposed to say to you, like seriously, I was supposed to say to you, and I didn't, but I was supposed to say to you that your strength, the way you serve others, how hard you work. I don't know if anybody said it to you lately, but I'm going to say it on their behalf. Thank you. Thank you. If God had one word for you, it would be thank you. Thank you for standing for values. Thank you for standing up. In a world where not a lot of people cheer one another on and they try to beat each other down, I just want you to hear from my voice. Thank you. I'm cheering you on, man. I don't know what you do, and I just met you, and I don't know your story, but I'm telling you, I felt like you needed to hear that today. Maybe that was why you came. So what am I talking about? This is a relationship, the relationship of community. We don't often think of the relationship of community and what it really provides for us. In the early church, they met from house to house, and then they came together on Sunday for communion. Huh. Is that where we get community from? Communion? Huh. Breaking bread? I don't know, maybe. See, life has a way of getting overwhelming, doesn't it? Sometimes we struggle. You might have a really big decision that you need to make this week about your future. You may want to do so many things with your life, and you're at a loss of where to start. Like, what do I do first? Emotionally, we can get beat down, right, by situations. We can have pressure from work to perform. We can have anxiety about putting the basics together. Like, how do we financially meet the needs, the basics of food and shelter and warmth, and how do we take care of our kids, and how do we get them? Like, life has a way of getting overwhelming, and overwhelming comes in a lot of shapes and sizes, doesn't it? And when it comes, it's tempting to peel off, to shut down, to spend time by ourselves. But that's the worst thing you can do when you get overwhelmed. When I was a kid, there was these big billboards, and they advertised cigarettes. And it was this man, and he had the best mustache ever and the perfect cowboy hat. And he was riding across the range. And I got to admit that in the 70s and 80s, that was the personification of strength. A man all alone riding the range. But I would submit to you, that's not the personification of strength. Instead, that's kind of like having all this ability and all this talent and all these giftings and spending every night with a gallon of ice cream and binge watching Netflix. That's the equivalent of the marble old man. See, when we're alone, we wallow in our thoughts. When we're alone, our minds become echo chambers. When we're alone, we reinforce hopelessness and despair. When there is no one in our life to break the cycle and shift our focus away from our problems, things can go from bad to worse. Why is this message important? Because I think that if you don't extract yourself, if you don't allow yourself, if you don't pull yourself out of community when you feel alone or you feel overwhelmed, this message is important because that's the route that's going to get you through the seasons where the knowledge is so vast but the wisdom is so skinny, where the worry is so great but the peace is so absent. The seasons that's not going to come it's not going to come from the times you get a little bent out and you want to peel off and go by yourself. It's actually going to come from drawing near. Because God never meant for us, for you, for me, He never meant us to be lonely. Genesis 2:18, right from the jump, He said what? He said it's not good for what? It's not good for man to be what? Alone, right? And how many know there's a slight difference between alone and lonely? Like when you go through trauma in a relationship, like the relationship last week, there's probably a season where you're going to be alone and lonely. But how many know the more comfortable you get with being alone when you've been codependent on an unhealthy relationship, the more healthy you get being alone, it will strip you from being lonely. You can be alone and be healthy. And when you're alone and healthy, that's when you're ready to get back into one of them relationship things again, like last week we were talking about. Right? Right? The world's filled with people, so we wouldn't be alone. We need each other so that we don't grow lonely, right? We are such relational beings. We have these horses, and horses are herd animals. You don't drive through, if you've ever driven between Yakima and Goldendale, you go through an Indian reservation where there's wild horses. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but there's hundreds of them. Them things, man, they add a lot every single spring. You never see one by itself. They're always together. So we have these 3 horses, and they kind of live in the pen together. And when we go out, Seven's horse is the most herd-bound, whiny thing I've ever heard. The other horses are fine, but if you load her in the stall first, you'd think you just loaded the stallion that's going to run at the Preakness this spring because she's like, arr, 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 arr. She just freaks out being alone because she's so herd-bound, right? We're relational. We're just like that. We're called to be. So when we start taking community away, we start unraveling. We think getting away is going to allow us, but what actually it does is it unravels us. My friend, Dr. Greg Jantz, he says, pulling yourself out of bed in the morning, getting dressed, leaving the house, and seeking out other people when you want to be alone seems counterintuitive. But community, especially faith-based community, can work wonders on the troubled soul. So what does God do in community? What does he do? Well, what he does is he says, he shows us that your mind and spirit get relief from your problems just being around other people and experiencing God's word. Hebrews says it this way. The writer of Hebrews says, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another. I'm tired of Sunday being the most stoic, religious, crossed arms, pursed lips day of the week. I've seen some of you folk out on Friday night at the bar before. I've seen you at the racetrack. Don't you tell me you don't know how to have a good time when you're in a group of people. Don't you show up here on Sunday morning and act all uppity and all religious and all folded hands and everything. Don't you tell me that. Come on. Let's put some life. Let's put some life in community. Yeah. Right? William Arthur Ward said, flatter me and I may not believe you. Criticize me and I may not like you. Ignore me and I may not forgive you. Encourage me and I will not forget you. The road to Jesus is often paved with life's difficulty. I don't know how you got here, but chances are it was bumpy and crooked. So just being around Christ followers, chances are you'll encounter someone who has walked through what you are facing. This is why you never worry alone, and you find wisdom, and you find cheers when you're the least cheered for person on the job site in a community, a faith-based community. This is what God does in it, is he gives you people that have walked a similar path as you. Nobody's walked your path. When I lost my mom and dad in that tragic plane crash 20 years ago, all the platitudes were awesome. And I don't take to Facebook because there wasn't Facebook back then. But I had a microphone at the time, and I'm like, man, save the another angel in heaven stuff. I need some people to walk with me in my worry. I need some people to bring me wisdom, not just nice little quotes. That's what community does. But it's okay for people that are 14 layers away from you to send you a message and say, thoughts and prayers for you. That's not a curse. The criticism against thoughts and prayers in our culture today is wrong. Thoughts and prayers are all I can give somebody that I've never met in Missouri. There's nothing wrong with that. But community is not located all the way in Missouri. It's right here. Bring something more to thoughts and prayers than thoughts and prayers to a community. Bring wisdom. Don't let people worry alone, and cheer them on, because most people aren't cheering them on anywhere in their life. Most kids that come to church, most students that come to youth group, most kids that go to school, they don't hear attaboy, they don't hear get after it, they don't have their mom and their dad, they're not getting encouraged in their things. Let the church be the place where the students get encouraged. What Matt did earlier, and let us be the church that conquers bullying by encouraging kids to be the inverse of bullying, by being the one that stands up and gets punched in the mouth for the kid that's getting bullied. Like, that's not scary. That's scary. I remember being in the second grade and getting punched in the mouth. That scared me. Got punched in the mouth in the 8th grade too. That wasn't fun. They hit harder when they get older. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 12, it says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? I love that one. Warm, baby. Anyway. Verse 12, a person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Like, how do we create this culture? How do we create a kind of community that stands and allows us to identify with one another? Well, testimony is a big part of it, friends. Listen, when the native converts on the island of Madagascar used to present themselves for baptism, it was often asked of them, what first led you to think of becoming a Christian? The answer usually was that the changed conduct of others who became Christians was the first thing that attracted them to Christianity. It always sounded something like this from those that were going into the waters of baptism. They'd say, I knew this man to be a thief. I knew that one to be a drunkard. Another one was very cruel and unkind to his family. Now they're all changed. The thief's an honest man. The drunkard's sober and respectable. The other is gentle and kind in his home. There must be something in a faith that can work such changes. Your testimony is not too small. God delivering you from the path that you were on is significant in building a community that gives wisdom to everybody, that never let people worry all by themselves, that allows people to cheer on those that never get cheered for. Your testimony really matters. I would exhort you to tell it as often and as frequently as you can, because we overcome what? By the blood of the Lamb. That's Jesus Christ. And what? The word of our testimony, right? How does community work? Your church will remind you that you are not the only one who is in a battle. I'm going to say that again because I stuttered. Your church will remind you that you are not the only one who is in a battle. There is something helpful and healing about being reminded that the world doesn't revolve around you. I don't know what that is, but it's helpful, right? Let me show you. I want to show you a video real quick. I think you'll resonate with it. We got that ready, guys? It's just something I found on YouTube. I thought it was cool. Is that good to go?
Imagine if you got what you want every time. No struggle, no hard work, no challenges, no hard work required. Some of you are saying that would be great. You would be weak. And then, when something hard comes up in your life, you wouldn't know how to handle it. Because you have never gone through anything that strengthens you. You cannot grow without struggle. You cannot develop strength without resistance, without challenging yourself, without struggle. Pain is your friend. Maybe not in the moment, but for the evolution of your soul, for the long-term benefit of you as a stronger human being. Pain is your friend. If you didn't have feelings, if you didn't have struggles, if you didn't have disappointment, you could have no strength, no courage, no compassion. How could you? Those qualities are made from your pain and struggle. You were given pain because you are strong enough to handle it. You were given this life because you are strong enough to live it. Because you are strong enough to drive through it, to thrive through it, to inspire others through it. They will look to you and say, he did it, she did it, I have the strength to do it too. You are stronger than you think. You'll survive all your challenges to this point. And you will survive whatever is coming. But next time a struggle comes, I don't want you to curse the skies. Know that it was sent for a reason. A lesson. It might be to make you stronger. It might be to teach you patience. It might be for you to show others your spirit. There is a reason. So don't you give up. You have a purpose in this world. And you will only find it if you keep going and keep growing.
I like that. This is what Paul said. That was a little coaching moment right there, right? That's what Paul said. This makes for harmony among the members so that all the members care for each other. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. If one part is honored, all the parts are glad. All of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. Rock Church, we can be a better community. I'm going to say it again. We can be a better community. It's not what you say, but it's what you do that really matters. Roads of life, they sometimes feel like they'll break us, but God surrounds us. He surrounds us with people. You're going to be tempted in this community to not serve. You're going to be tempted to leave gaps and let people suffer alone. That's how the enemy works. The enemy always takes a church community and gets it to focus on the inside. The meism. The getting what's for me. I need to be fed. If I'm not fed, we can be a better community because we can realize that that's the inertia of humanity. Is that we come and try to feed our own agenda, our own soul, our own wants, our own desires. But the truth is, we can be a better community by not falling for the bait of temptation. And we can grow to serve others. We're going to be tempted at times to not give to this community. It's going to happen. We're going to be tempted when months don't meet, when struggles come. We're going to be tempted. We're going to be tempted to keep our dollars back. We're going to be tempted to say somebody else can cover that. We're going to be tempted to come to this church for years and give nothing. That's a part of temptation, but that isn't the best you. And that's not the best community. We can be a better community. But if you look around, just take a second and look around, all around you. If you look around at the people who benefit from your service, from the people who benefit from your generosity, it will not fill you with 1 ounce of worry or grief or pain. It will fill you with joy and fill you with humility. Walk slow through the children's wing on the way to pick up your kids and look at everybody else's kids and realize that what you gave in the offering today makes that happen for the joy that's on everybody else's kids' faces. If you haven't been to Friday night lately, you should come to Friday night lately and walk the halls of this church when hundreds and hundreds of people are being fed and fresh food is flowing out of this place. When you give, you fuel that. You charge that. That's what makes us a better community. You're not walking alone through your grief. You hear from somebody in this room. Somebody reaches out to you more often than not. And I hate it when I hear stories when people go through stuff and nobody is called and nobody connects, and that's a failure on my part. And I'm sorry for that. And I own that. We're doing better at that every single day and every single year. But I'm telling you, you more often than not are supported in ways you're not even considering. You're taking for granted. We can be a better community just by being cognizant of what's happening to us. How does this place touch our lives? How does this worship make a difference in me? What do I actually come in experiencing? What do I leave experiencing? Paul said it this way: always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. There is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and living through all. Amen? Stand up right where you're at. I want you to say these words. I want you to say them together in community as a prayer. I want you to say, thank God He knew I couldn't live lonely. Come on. Thank God for creating such a vibrant group of believers to do life with. Come on. Now look around you. Make eye contact with somebody. You are not alone in this journey. You are not alone in your struggles. Don't fall for the trap to peel off when life gets overwhelming. Lean in, not lean out. Step up, don't step away. There's a group of people here that's more powerful than any other group of people in your life. I feel led to share this just real quickly. I just feel like this is the Spirit of God. Before my parents passed away, I felt like I had the greatest family on the planet. And after they were gone, I felt like I had no family. My dad's brother, my Uncle Jim, stepped up, Jim and Tony, and everybody kind of pieced it together the best they could, but then he passed away. My family is the best family ever. And they walk with me as much as I can. But it's the Christ followers in my life. The ones who bring wisdom instead of just knowledge. The ones who take the worry off my plate instead of put on it. The ones who cheer me on when nobody else does. That's community. That's family. That's something of value. And that's all happened right here in this church. And it's not just for me. I'm trying to give it away and wheel it and deal it and say it and spray it every Sunday, right? It's awesome to be surrounded by such faithful company. Those who share the same beliefs, faith, and convictions as we all do. And to know their advice in the times of crisis will be rooted in the Word of God. I'm grateful for that. God promised where 2 or 3 are gathered, there He would be in our midst. Think about that picture. Let us act and speak like we are sitting all together all the time. Let us never get caught speaking ill of each other to other people in our community. Let us remain in love with one another. Let us stay encouraging one another. And let's have another's best intentions at heart at all times. And then let us push each other to be the greatest reflection of you and me and us that we can be. Let us push. Father, I thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name for real community, Father. And Lord, I speak right now, God, to the atmosphere and the spirit of loneliness, God, that walked into this room. And I speak to you and I say, son, daughter, you don't have to be lonely anymore. I hear the Lord calling you home this morning. I hear Him saying to you, you're going to find answers and wisdom for life's dominating problems right here in this house. I hear the Lord saying you're going to find friendship right here in this house. I also hear the Lord saying, don't look for it to be like a microwave friendship or microwave wisdom. A lot of times we walk into a community of humans and we expect them to respond like our macaroni and cheese. Stick it in the oven and 3 minutes later it's all done, ready to eat, and it's the best it's ever been. That's not how humans work. But I heard this phrase a couple weeks ago on a podcast. I heard it this: trust is given, mistrust is earned. That's not how the culture says it. They say trust is earned. No, trust is given. We give you trust. Mistrust is earned. Trust is given. That's how we build relationships. And so it won't be like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Just about 30 seconds and ready for consumption. Community takes time. But I'm telling you, this house we stand, we're going to be a better community through thick and thin. Amen. Love you all. Come on, guys.